A corporate raider is an investor or a group of investors who buys a large stake in a company with the goal of gaining control and forcing changes, often against the wishes of existing management. In simple words, a corporate raider is someone who targets a company they believe is undervalued or poorly managed, takes a big position in it, and then pressures it to restructure, sell assets, or even sell itself in order to unlock value. The phenomenon of corporate raiders became especially famous in the 1980s in the United States, when financial markets were liberalizing, junk bonds were booming, and hostile takeovers were common. Raiders such as Carl Icahn, T. Boone Pickens, and Sir James Goldsmith became household names. They were both admired and feared. Admired because they often identified companies with wasted resources and unlocked shareholder value, and feared because their aggressive tactics could mean job losses, asset stripping, or the dismantling of long-established corporations. How does a corporate raider operate? Typically, the raider starts by buying up shares in the target company, sometimes quietly at first to avoid pushing up the stock price. Once they have accumulated a significant stake, they may announce their intention to push for changes. These changes might include demanding that management sell off unprofitable divisions, cut costs, or restructure debt. In some cases, the raider launches a hostile takeover bid, offering to buy enough shares to seize control of the company directly. Let's take a practical example. Suppose a conglomerate owns several businesses, but many of them are underperforming. The stock market undervalues the conglomerate because resources are spread too thin. A corporate raider might step in, buy a large shareholding, and demand that the company spin off or sell its weak divisions. If management resists, the raider could try to replace directors on the board or offer to buy the company outright. If successful, the raider may break up the company and sell its parts, often at higher valuations than the whole. One of the most famous corporate raids was Carl Icahn's takeover of TWA, the airline, in the 1980s. Icahn forced through changes that generated profits for shareholders in the short term, but critics argued that the company was weakened in the long run. This highlights the double-edged nature of raiding. It can create quick financial value, but it sometimes damages the long-term health of the business. Over time, the term corporate raider took on a negative tone, often associated with ruthless tactics, hostile takeovers, and short-termism. Many governments responded by strengthening takeover defenses and corporate governance rules. Companies also developed strategies like poison pills, staggered boards, and golden parachutes to make themselves harder targets for raiders. Yet, in another sense, corporate raiders played a role in disciplining managers. In the 1970s and 80s, many big corporations were accused of being inefficient and complacent. Raiders shook up the system, reminding managers that shareholders, not executives, ultimately own the company. In this way, they contributed to the rise of shareholder value as the dominant philosophy in corporate governance. A curiosity is that the modern descendants of corporate raiders are activist investors. Today's activists, such as hedge funds like Elliott Management, use many of the same tactics, buying large stakes and pressuring management for changes. But they often present themselves in a more constructive light, emphasizing long-term value creation rather than quick asset sales. Some even sit on boards and work closely with management. In conclusion, a corporate raider is an investor who aggressively acquires stakes in companies to force changes and unlock value, often through hostile takeovers or restructuring. They were icons of the 1980s, shaping both corporate behavior and regulation. While controversial, their actions transformed the landscape of modern finance and paved the way for today's activist investors. Above, you can find more videos to keep learning about law. Remember to give us a like and subscribe.